Alrighty guys, welcome back to another Football Manager 2021 video. This is going to be another experiment type video, and again we're going to be using Celtic Football Club. Now the good news for Celtic Football Club is we're bringing back some of their former players. This series is basically going to see how Celtic would be performing right now. How would Celtic have evolved if they hadn't sold their best players over the past decade? But the bad news for Celtic is they've still got Neil Lennon as their manager, so no doubt they're going to finish about 55 points behind Rangers, but you never know until we try the experiment. Now, I'm not bringing back every single player that they've sold. I decided, you know what, there's no need for that. We'll just go with 5. So I have picked the 5 best players, in my opinion, that Celtic have sold over the last 10 years, in the last decade, that are still playing at a competitive level. And I have added them back into the Celtic team, and we're going to simulate 3 years just to see how well Celtic can do. Now, I would expect with these 5 players, I think Celtic will win the league 3 times in a row, but I want to see, will these players help Celtic compete and, progress in Europe, something that Celtic have not been able to do. And I don't just mean Europe as in Europa League, I mean the Champions League. I want to see if Celtic now can take that extra step with the players that were brought back in. So let's have a quick look at them then, and we'll see how they go on. So, first up we have Victor Wanyama. The Kenyan is now 29 years old. He was playing for Montreal Impact, but we've brought him back to Celtic. He did leave Celtic to go to Southampton, I believe, in the end of the 2012-2013 season. He was a key player for Celtic at the time. Didn't stay there for that long, but was loved by the fans and has since then had a successful career with Southampton and Tottenham. So it'll be interesting to see how he does it back at Celtic. I mean, surely he'd be great to come in and replace Scott Brown. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know. Well, remains to be seen. We will find out. Up next, we have Virgil Van Dijk. Obviously, he had to be one of the players that we brought back, guys. Obviously, again, another player that went to Southampton. Celtic seem to be a feeder team for Southampton. I don't know what the crack is, but Southampton are getting all Celtic's best players. Anyway, regardless, Virgil van Dijk is now back at Celtic without his injury this season. So he is fit and ready to go. And coming in, at centre-back, he's going to make a massive difference. And I'm pretty sure Shane Duffy will be shaking in his boots, because now he's getting a fucking real defender. And I don't think Shane Duffy will be featuring much going forward. Arguably the best centre-back in the world. I mean, I wouldn't say I agree with that, but arguably he is. Up next, talking about best players in their position. This guy could be the best player in his position. Kieran Tierney, not long left, only left just over a year ago, but he is back. I mean, he's not even hit the prime yet. He's still developing, so I can only imagine what Kieran Tierney is going to be like at the end of this 3-year experiment when he is 26. He will be a phenomenal player, and he will be a Celtic player, so I'm interested to see how Celtic will progress with him. Can you imagine Kieran Tierney and Virgil van Dijk at the back beside each other? Holy shit, that's going to be insane. What a partnership that will be. Up next, we have Moussa Dembele, the Frenchman now plying his trade in La Liga football, currently on loan for Atletico Madrid. Although his current club, I guess, is Lyon. They own him, but he is playing Atletico Madrid on loan. But he's now a Celtic player. In my opinion, the best Celtic striker they've had in the past decade. Easily, I think he's better than Edouard. And now that he's back at Celtic Park, I'd expect him to be starting over Edouard again. I mean, similar to Tierney, this guy's really, really young. Sometimes because he was around for that long, you expect he's a wee bit older. But no, he's still only 24. So again, hadn't even hit his prime. He'll be a big player for Celtic in this experiment. And last but not least, guys, perhaps maybe the least important player here, or maybe arguably the most important player here, because Celtic are getting back the best goalkeeper I think they've had in a very long time, and the big man, Fraser Forster, he will be back with, I mean, I'm assuming he'll go back between the sticks here, because I cannot imagine Barkas keeping him out. But yeah, guys, there you go. That is it. Fraser Forster is back in. And that's the 5 players here that we've added to the Celtic team. Victor Wanyama, Virgil van Dijk, Kieran Tierney, Moussa Dembele, Fraser Forster. And that is it. Obviously, they will be coming into the team alongside the entire current squad. And it will be interesting to see will all of these 5 players fit into the starting 11. Will a couple of them fit in? I don't know. I would have to assume that they'll all fit in. I mean, if I was the manager, I would definitely be having them all in my team. But it's Neil Lennon. Fucking Neil Lennon doesn't have a clue what he's doing. So we'll need to wait and see what Neil does Alright, so it appears now that the players have been added. Neil Lennon has changed things about. And here is the starting 11 as it stands just before the start of the season. Now, obviously, things could change, but 4 of the 5 players that have returned to Celtic have made it into the team. Foster, Van Dijk, Tierney and Dembele. But he has left out Victor Wanyama. Could have went in the defensive midfield positions, but he's going for Henderson and Turnbull at the moment, so it'll be interesting to see whether he sticks with that. Ewan Henderson, I'm not too sure he's here to stay, but we will see what happens, guys. So what we're going to do is we're just going to skip a season at a time. We'll see how they got on. We'll check the stats. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's fire up and let's get into the first season. Alright, so we have completed the first season, and the news is in. Look at that. Celtic complete invincible season. So there you go. Fucking dominant. Just having those 5 players come in. By the looks of it, Rangers finishing the season with a 1-0 defeat to Kilmarnock. That is not good. Celtic lifted the Scottish Premiership title comfortably with 30 points separating them from Rangers. Holy shit. Holy shit, man. It's a superb season for the boys who claimed their 10th successive title to back up their pre-season credentials. So there you go. Celtic have completed 10 in a row. Let's see what the table looks like. And magnificent there. No doubt about it. Massive achievement, and that's it. Look, 38 games played, 34 wins and 4 draws, 106 points. Is that not the exact same as they got with Brendan Rodgers? I think it might be. I think Brendan Rodgers got that. I think he got 106 points with 34 wins and 4 defeats. Rangers, 23 wins, 7 draws, 8 losses, 76 points, 30 behind. Not good enough. Kilmarnock, surprisingly, in 3rd place. Hamilton is high as 5th. Aberdeen, way down there in 8th place, and could have easily been in a relegation playoff. That is mad here. Let's see how Rangers got on then. And you can see they've actually changed the manager. They've brought in Paco Gemes, so yeah, Stevie G's been sacked. Gerrard's been sacked halfway through the season. How long did he last? We don't know when he last, but his win percentage this season was 62%, and he left on the just before Valentine's Day. So, heartbreaking stuff there for Stevie G. He's out, but it's a massive win for Celtic. They win the league. Let's see what the overview looks like here. And so Celtic, most points per game, 2.79. Most goals was Celtic, 92 goals compared to the 60 from Rangers, so a totally 32 goals more. Most shots was Celtic, fewest shots against Celtic. Best pass completion was Celtic. Most possession was Celtic. Kilmarnock had the most tackles, but everything here was Celtic. Most clean sheets, fewest conceded. I mean, absolutely mental. Highest attendance, games without losing. Obviously, they win with 38. That's pretty phenomenal. Games without winning. Rangers are currently on a streak, 4 games without a win. Average possession, Celtic dominate that. And Rangers top of the cards score sheet as well, so not good for them. Let's go to the player overview. Most goals was Edouard. He was 1st. Christie was 2nd. Moussa Dembele 3rd. So 3 Celtic players leading the way here in terms of goals per minute. Edouard had 118, so a goal every 118 minutes. Dembele slightly longer, a goal every 129 minutes. But Dembele didn't make as many appearances as Edouard now. Was it because maybe Dembele got injured, or maybe Edouard was just favoured? I do not know. But Edouard with the most goals. Most assists is Cal McGregor. Look at that. We've actually got Virgil Van Dijk in joint 3rd place with 9. That's crazy for a centre-back to be up there. Most player of the match awards was Edouard with 9. Virgil van Dijk with 8. Again, dominated by Celtic. Morelos got the most shots away. But that doesn't really matter. If you're not scoring them, it doesn't really mean shit. Best pass completion was Virgil van Dijk with 93, along with centre-back partner Christopher Adger with 92. And the fewest goals conceded was Barkas with 5. But I'm assuming he didn't play as many games as Fraser Foster. But no, he actually had a slightly better look at that. So every 90 minutes he's conceding 0.46. Fraser's conceding 0.47, but not a lot in it. Very close there, guys. Could practically have gone either way. So very close. Player details or anything else we want to look at here. Well, what we want to do is we want to see how Celtic got on not domestically. Well, domestically too, but also in Europe. So let's have a quick look then at the Betfred Cup and the Scottish Cup, and we'll see how they got on. So, Scottish Cup, they won the final But who did they beat in the final? They defeated Aberdeen by 2-1, and in the end it was pretty comfortable. 18 shots to Aberdeen 6. Considine got a very late consolation, but didn't matter in the end. So Celtic win that. Do they complete the treble? No, they got knocked out in the quarterfinals of the Betfred Cup by Aberdeen. Right, okay, and Aberdeen went on to win that, so fair play to Aberdeen. At least they've got their hands on a trophy, and they did knock out Celtic in the quarterfinals. And that game's a wee bit more even than the first one there, 2 goals for Canberra. But that's pretty good there from Aberdeen. And I guess Celtic get revenge in the Scottish Cup. Now, in terms of Europe, Champions League, got knocked out in the Champions Path playoff by Legia Warsaw. I mean, that's very disappointing for Celtic. I mean, didn't even make the fucking, what's that all about? Was it the playoffs? Let's see no, they got to the playoffs. Where did they get knocked out? So yeah, they got knocked out in the actual playoffs itself, and they got Legia Warsaw beat them. For some reason, we can't view the details, but they lost 2-1. I think it was a single leg playoff, because of COVID. And then in the Europa League, they got knocked out in the second round by AZ Alkmaar. So they did all right here. How did they do in the group stage? I wonder who they got in their group. Have a quick look here. They got a group with Besiktas, Maccabi, and Karabakh, whatever you call them. They got through that, and then in the first round, they got drawn against Krasnodar, who you'd expect them to beat, and they did. But their journey came to an end there in the second round, where they lost to AZ Alkmaar 5-4 in aggregate. I mean, really, they can't believe they lost the second tie at Celtic Park. They had a 3-1 lead. They had a 3-1 lead from Holland going into Celtic Park, coming back to Glasgow. They had a 3-1 lead, and they couldn't get the job done. That's mad. I would not have expected that to be the case. But last thing we want to check here is Neil Lennon's still in charge. Hardly surprising there after the season he's had. Last thing we want to check here is the transfers. Let's see who they have brought in and who have they. Well, we'll know all about these. Ajeti, Barkas, and they haven't brought in anybody. They have not brought in anybody, but have they sold players? Maybe they have to try and get the wage budget down. Keep in mind that they brought in they've loaned out Ewan Henderson, Ross Dohan, Stephen Welsh is away, Lee Griffiths is away on loan. So just a bunch of players there. Jeremy Frimpong, they sold Jeremy Frimpong to Bayer Leverkusen. So I don't know. They could have definitely done with keeping them, but I guess they try and had to make funds. I don't know, but they have won the league. I'll get them some money. I think overall, I mean, that first season was not bad. I guess you'd consider it, well, not bad. I mean, come on, they won the league, didn't lose a game. Plus, they won the Scottish Cup. It was a great season. But I think they'll be a wee bit disappointed not to win the Betfred Cup and to not qualify for the Champions League. Plus, they were within touching distance of the next round, the last 16 of the Europa League, or the last, not the last 16, the quarterfinals even, or whatever round it is. And to lose like that, I mean, after taking a 3-1 lead, in the away game, to bring it back to Celtic Park and to concede, it's a bit shit. It is a bit shit. But anyway, guys, we're going to sim another year. We'll see how Celtic get on in their second year. We'll see what players they manage to hold on to, which players they have to sell, and if they can, well, they can't better what they did domestically. All they can do is just repeat that and add the Betfred Cup. But more importantly, I want to see how they got on in Europe. Can they finally qualify for the Champions League group stages and try and improve in European competition? Let's find out. And we get to Season 2, and Celtic once again win the league. This time, though, not as convincingly as they did on the previous effort. They did lose 2 games towards the end of the season. And we'll have a quick look at those 2 games. But they won the league by 6 points to Rangers, so Rangers definitely closed the gap here. But Celtic were almost about to do another invincible season, as we can see here. We get to the last 2 games of the season, they lost to Rangers and Hearts. So if they had avoided defeat there, again, it would have been another unbeaten season. But unfortunately, they couldn't do that. And it meant that they have 2 defeats on their record. Again, in terms of stats, Celtic lead the way in most of the important ones. This time, though, Rangers were a lot better defensively. They had the most clean sheets and the fewest goals conceded, only 19. So, looks like Rangers definitely did some good work defensively, but Celtic still strong enough to win the league title, and that's really here what matters. We'll have a quick look and see what the transfers were like for Celtic. Who did they get rid of? Did they manage to keep any of their key players? So they brought in Diego Cures, Floreno Coman, Idan Kartsev, and Federico DeMarco. Don't really know many of them or any of them, to be honest, but I guess it could be decent players. And out a totally 54 million. And the players out were Christopher Adger, Tom Rogic, Bale, Christopher Julian, Bolinogley, Lee Griff is on loan, Shevd, Ajeti, Odson Edouard went to Real Madrid, massive. Ewan Henderson's away on loan, and Ryan Millen is away to Hearts. So, I mean, straight away, you can see why Celtic weren't as successful this time around, because, I mean, they sold so many key players. Adger, Rogic, Julian, Ajeti, Edouard. It's just amazing. Even Griffiths out on loan. It just doesn't make sense to me why they've decided to sell that many players. Let's have a look at what their current starting 11 now looks like. So it's Foster, DeMarco, Van Dijk, Queiroz, Tierney on the right hand side, Wanyama now is playing in the middle of the field with McGregor, Coman, Kartsev, Forrest, and Dembele up front. Don't get me wrong, it's still a very strong team. Most fucking teams would die to have that squad. Let's see how they got on. Scottish Cup, they won the final. Convincing win over Queen of the South. So there you go, they've won the Scottish Cup now for 5 years in a row. That is pretty impressive. 6 years in a row, actually. 6 years in a row, that is pretty impressive. What did they do in the Betfred Cup? Oh, they lost the semi-final to Rangers, so that is very disappointing from their perspective, losing that match to Rangers. Who won the final? Rangers win, so Rangers finally get their hands on some silverware. They get a trophy. 2-0 defeat by Ross County. And in Europe, did Celtic improve? So, looks like straight away they got knocked out the Champions League playoff path by Midtjylland, and that's very poor. I mean, you'd expect this Celtic team to beat Midtjylland. It did not happen. Instead, they went into the Euro group stages where they lost to Reims in the opening game, then they beat Sparta Prague 3-0. They beat this Bashir team 2-0, then lost to Bashir 1-0. Overall, in the group, they just managed to sneak through 10 points, same amount of points as Riem, but it was a close group. Could have so easily not have qualified, so that gets them into the next round. And let's see where they go from there. So they go into the first knockout round. And Rangers were also there. So Rangers beat Benfica, but Celtic beat Red Bull Salzburg 2-1 on aggregate. So Celtic and Rangers, both teams through to the second round. Interesting stuff. Now we get there. Celtic have put out Red Bull Leipzig on aggregate. That's crazy. They've just about sneaked through. 3-3, but Celtic got the 2 away goals. And there was the team they had when they beat them. Goals for Coman and Dembele was enough to secure Celtic the draw. And that's all they needed, a 2-2 draw. That 2 away goals there was the difference between them going out and going through. So now they move on into the quarterfinals. And they beat Reims, the team that they had in their group. And holy shit, they beat them 6-1 on aggregate. So a massive result there. It's 4-0 in France. That is mad. No, 4-0 at Celtic Park, should I say, sorry. And that is madness. Look at that, 17 shots to 2. Complete domination. There was the Celtic lineup for that game. Forrest got a hat-trick. Mikey Johnston with another fantastic performance for Celtic. Now they move on to the semis. Can they go all the way? No, they can't. They've been stopped by Wolves 3-1 in aggregate. I think so 2-1 at Wolves, and then they lost 1-0 at Celtic Park. They did take the lead through James Forrest, who seems to be on fire. He seems to be scoring left, right and centre, but just couldn't get the job done there. Wolves take the win, and that ends Celtic's Europa League quest. Their hopes for end of season awards. Celtic must have won a shitload of awards. They did. Virgil Van Dijk, Fans Player of the Season. Kieran Tierney, again, still getting the Young Player of the Season, still 24 years old. So that is mental, but Celtic there did sell a shitload of players. Now, how will that leave them, guys, going into season 3? The last season that we're going to check here. Will it be another selling season for Celtic, or will they try and keep the players that they've got, maybe bring a few more in? I mean, you'd seen on that run there, they almost did another unbeaten season. They were unbeaten for 36 games and only lost the last 2. So, I mean, that's maybe a wee bit of, sloppiness at the end. Losing two games like that. The Betfred Cup, I guess, was unlucky. They almost won another 3 trophies, but they didn't get the job done. And now they need to try and progress. I think they will win the league for the third straight season. they could easily win the cups. I wouldn't be surprised if they win both cups, but can they improve on a semi-final place in the Europa League? It's going to be tough, especially if they sell a couple more key players, but we will advance it, guys, one more season to find out this experiment. What if Celtic did not sell their best players in the last decade? Let's find out how the third and final season gets on. And in the last and final season, again, Celtic retain the title. That is, what, 12 straight titles in a row? But each year they've did it less convincingly. This time, well, I mean, less convincingly, they've beat Rangers by 14 points, which is pretty convincing, but they've got a lower points tally than they did the previous 2 seasons, which I guess is a wee bit disappointing. What did they do in terms of domestic cups? In terms of the Betfred Cup, they got knocked out in the second round by Kilmarnock, which is pretty damn shit from them on penalties, so Kilmarnock knocked them out. Not great there. In the Scottish Cup, they enter in the third round. And in the third round, they got... No, maybe they don't enter in the third round. Maybe they enter in the fourth round. My bad. Okay, fourth round it is. And in the fourth round, they were against Alloa. They defeated Alloa by 2-0. Into the fifth round now, they'd knock out Rangers, so get some pretty good revenge there. Let's see what that game was like. 14 shots each, so it was a pretty even game. Rangers have got some guy called Woodburn playing in a cam role. I've no idea who that is. And the Celtic team looks a wee bit different as well. Holy shit, the Celtic team looks a hell of a lot different. I'm going to assume that maybe they've sold a couple of players here. We will check that out soon after this, but I want to see how they did here. Then the quarterfinals, they beat Dundee United. Hearts are also still in it. Aberdeen are still in it. And Airdrie are in it. Jesus Christ, we Airdrie, my hometown, are still there. And typical Celtic there. Typical Celtic get Airdrie in the semis. They beat them at Hampden. Hearts have beat Aberdeen, and that means the final's going to be Celtic against Hearts, and Hearts can't beat Celtic. They get humped 3-0. So Celtic again win the Scottish Cup for the third year in a row in this experiment. Overall, that's seven Scottish Cups in a row. Jesus Christ, man, that is pretty insane. Let's see how they got on though in the Champions League. So finally, Celtic do qualify. They beat Hapoel Beersheva by 4-1 on aggregate, and that means they will qualify now for the group stages. Now, which group did they get? See some groups here. I don't see Celtic. Oh geez, so they got Barcelona, Napoli, Galatasaray. Difficult group, no doubt about it. And they don't qualify. They don't even finish third. So that's pretty poor from Celtic's perspective. They had one win, which was against Galatasaray. Galatasaray also had one win, which was against Celtic. Their win was a larger scoreline, bigger deficit, and that means that Galatasaray go through to the next round instead of Celtic. So Celtic then, they get knocked out the Betfred Cup in the second round. They do the double with the Cup and the League, but this time they do not advance past the new year in Europe, and that is pretty poor. Let's look at what they did in terms of transfers, though, because I feel like they maybe have sold some players there. Let's have a quick look at the 2022-2023 season. Who did they bring in? They brought in Mikio Mafiento from Shakhtar Donetsk, sorry. They brought in Terem Moffi from FC Lorente. A couple of other players in it. Mafia's Norman. But who did they let go of? Let's see. 75 million in total. Virgil Van Dijk, they sold to PSG, 40 mil. Shitload of cash. Coleman's away to Husea there for 6.75 million. James Forrest is away to Frankfurt Eintracht for a lot of money. Tierney is away to Man United for 19.5 million, guys. And I think that goes and sums it up. How it just shows you that over the 3 years, Celtic haven't held on to their best players. They've decided to continue to sell them, and you can tell that each season they've got progressively worse. So it looks like Celtic are just a club that they will keep selling their best players, and they will try and bring in cheaper players that in the end don't tend to be that good. And I think that does make sense. You look at real life, I mean, when they do get quality players, they do sell them on. That's why we're doing this series, because they have sold their best players over the past decade. And you look at the players that they brought in, I don't think they've really brought in anyone really worthy of replacing them. You look at this current Celtic team, and not a lot of players from the the opening season remain. Yeah, so interesting stuff there, guys. That's the experiment over. Celtic still won the league, but overall, when I did expect a wee bit more to bring those 5 world-class players, back to Celtic. Like I said, in the second season, they had a really, really successful run in the Europa League. They got all the way to the semis. knocked out by Wolves. Perhaps they could have done a wee bit better in that tie, but they didn't. I mean, they still won the league 3 years in a row. They won the Scottish Cup 3 years in a row, and they won the Betfred Cup one of the 3 years, which is not bad. But overall, the third year in Europe was really disappointing, and you can tell that is when they sold, the majority of their players. When you lose Tierney and when you lose Van Dijk over a season, you are going to struggle. And I think you could even tell based on the defensive record. You look at the first season, Celtic had all the best stats, conceded the least amount of goals. Had the most clean sheets, you name it, Celtic had it. But then in the second and third season, it was Rangers who had the better defence, and that, in my opinion, has to be due to Celtic, selling. First they sold Frimpong, then it was Kieran Tierney, then it was Van Dijk, and when you sell those players, you are going to weaken your team. Anyway, guys, that was the experiment, how Celtic would do if they hadn't sold their best players over the past decade, and they've did all right. But I kind of expected more. So there you go, guys. That is it. Let me know down below what you think of the results. Did you expect more? Did you expect less? And yeah, I just don't think Celtic can hold on to their best players. Maybe down the line, maybe it would take more than 3 years. Maybe you'd have to do like a longer experiment. Maybe if you do like a 10-year experiment and the coefficient of the Scottish League goes up, I don't know, perhaps with more teams in the Champions League, perhaps the prestigious relevancy of the Scottish Premiership goes up. You get more money for winning it. Like Celtic start performing better in Europe. Maybe when the financial situation gets better, perhaps then that is when Celtic, can try and compete for, and try and hold on to their players. Now, I don't think you can look at the financial aspect since we are not in charge. No, it doesn't look like you can, so we can't even really see any of the financial situation, how the club is doing, which is kind of a shame. I would like to see, but it's just not to be, guys. So, you know what? That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching. For all we know, Celtic could be skint. But I doubt they are. They're probably doing alright. They've probably got more money than me. Everybody's got more money than me. Anyway, guys, that's it. Till next time. Peace.